This episode of Legacy Curious is brought to you by Legacy Protectors. Customize insurance strategies for business owners and families who aspire to create a lasting legacy. Hello there, and welcome to Legacy Curious, the show where we explore what it really means to protect, grow, and pass on everything you've worked so hard to build. I'm your host, David Gravelle. I'm a life insurance strategist, business legacy coach, and founder of Legacy Protectors. Each episode, I sit down with the bold thinkers, entrepreneurs, and everyday visionaries who are turning their values into lasting impact in business, in life, and across generations. Today's guest is Dr. Deva-Marie Beck. She's a Canadian-American nurse, global networker, educator, and award-winning Nightingale Scholar. After 30 years of clinical practice in critical care and women's health, she has served for more than 2 decades as a volunteer international co-director for the Nightingale Initiative for Global Health, often called NIGH. In this role, she has chaired a wide range of projects to establish NIGH's nursing, midwifery, and social global advocacy mandates, including partnering with a growing grassroots to global team to establish the Canadian African Maternal Newborn Health Association, also known as CAMNHA. In 2002, Dr. Beck achieved her PhD in Interdisciplinary Nursing and International Development from the Union Institute for her groundbreaking research to articulate Florence Nightingale's relevance to today's international health, development, education, and media. So welcome, Dr. Deva. How are you today? Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you, David. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
So I'm here in Oklahoma City area. You can see a beautiful day for us. What part of the world are you calling in from?
I live in Canada's capital, Ottawa, in the Ottawa region, and I'm a Canadian American. I'm in Canada by choice, and very grateful to be here.
And I'm a Canadian as well, in America by choice. Some difficult circumstances for us here, but my wife's family's here, and both of my kids were born here. And we have lived in Windsor, Ontario, most recently, and love Canada. My son's still there going to school, so still feel a much kinship to all my Canadian family and friends. So glad to speak to you today. Tell us a bit about your current position. What your title is and what are you doing currently?
Thank you. I'm Dr. Deva-Marie Beck, and I'm on the board of the Canadian African Maternal Newborn Health Association. That the acronym is kind of fun. It's called CAMNHA, and we're just still playing with what is my actual title. I might be managing director, I might be general, I don't know, but I'm on the board with it. We're still in the development stage, and so.
Yeah, and we'll get to some more questions around that, but I wanted to kind of just back up a minute and get our audience to know you a little bit more about, who you are and the work that you've done in the past. So let's first talk about when you decided to become a nurse and what was your kind of passion for that, and how long ago was that, and what kind of nursing have you done?
Oh, thank you. I'm a very happy nurse, even in semi-retirement. As a child and a teenager, I didn't want to be a nurse because one of my aunts was one of those nurses like Nurse Ratched on the Cuckoo's Nest, and I wasn't thinking I could be that kind of a nurse. But eventually I went to medical assisting school, and then I was working in a lab and EKG tech in a hospital in Oceanside, California. And over time I figured, these nurses are doing what I can do. So then I became a nurse, and I actually graduated my nursing school in the mid-70s, and then worked. By then I was an EKG tech who could read EKGs. So I was placed into coronary care units, critical care units, and across my career from 76 to 2002, when I retired clinical, I worked in a wide range of critical care areas, including endoscopy. And my last several years, I worked in home delivery. I provided intravenous medicines for people at home into their central lines. So I did a wide range of things across my career.
I bet you that's taking you to many different situations, whether it's hospital or clinics, right, and in-home, it sounds like now. Talk about what, inside you, drives you to continually show up to help others and to, right. I mean, you're on the front lines. So
I am
continues,
indeed.
Yeah, what continues that?
And here I am in my mid-70s. I'm still very, very busy with this. Across those years, I began to see, at least half of my career, I began to see that my concern was certainly for patients. But because I was working in so many places in short-term contracts, that I was beginning to be concerned for nurses, the nurses themselves. And that has morphed into what I'm doing now. I'm more concerned, clearly, these projects that I'm working on are providing for patients and for clients, for people in need, certainly the project that we're discussing. But I'm concerned for the nurses and midwives of the world. They were already very, very in difficult situations before COVID, and now we have been told recently that there's going to be a shortfall of 13 million nurses and midwives by 2030 across the world, because it's very tough work,
right?
And so that's part of one of the drivers in what I'm doing today.
So it sounds like you started your career wanting to care for the people you were serving, but over time you also identified fellow nurses as needing additional support and care. Is that fair? Yeah.
Absolutely. I would say that's been my evolution. Yeah.
Right. As you expanded your, sphere of influence, when did you decide that, I have to get involved, like not only in the local settings like you've been, but, nationally and globally? How did that occur, and how long has that been happening?
Well, that was my midlife crisis, roughly the mid to late 80s. I began to see that we could be making hospitals and nurses. I was more working with nurses than midwives at that point. Hospitals and nurses could be as good as they could possibly be, and we would still have the upstream problems that are causing people to be sick and injured in the first place. And I began to see that environmental issues, economic issues, even educational issues, literacy issues, cultural issues were factoring people being sick. It's what we now call upstream. And it was just then in the early 90s, perhaps you remember, some people may remember, that the United Nations convened a United Nations summit in Rio called the Earth Summit. And I attended preps for that summit. I didn't actually get to go, but I saw in that summit that the effectiveness of the Earth Summit cause was in the hands of the NGOs who were involved, not the bureaucrats who were there because they were assigned to go, but the people who actually cared about it. And that's when I said, I want to learn how to do that. And with that, in those same early 90s years, I moved to Washington, D.C. from California to be more involved with national NGOs working on these kinds of causes. And then I met people from Ottawa and began to be in Ottawa as well. And that's when I fell in love with it in the late 90s.
Yeah, it's a beautiful part of the world and close to my heart. My dad's family's still there, and he's originally from there. So we try to make it up there as often as we can. And so thank you for that. Thank you for serving, not only Canadians, but, all the people that you do. So you alluded to...
Can I just say one more thing about this?
Sure.
Were you going to be asking me about how that developed a little bit?
That's right.
Can
I'm just
you?
about to segue into the NGOs that you mentioned.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. So
good.
let's
All
just
right.
continue. So,
Okay.
Dr. Deva, tell me, you kind of alluded to some of those NGOs. Can you be a little more specific on, the ones that you want to talk about today and how you
Right.
got involved in the work that you do?
Okay. I'm gonna segue. I'm gonna answer your question a little bit roundabout. I'm gonna segue from my decision to be in Washington and Ottawa in the late '90s. It was in the mid '90s, actually. In all of those years, I was seeing myself as learning to be a global citizen, working in global civil society projects. And I was seeing myself as walking away from nursing. I thought I was just using nursing shifts to pay for my adventures. And then I had this amazing opportunity. One of the NGOs that I was working on in the early '90s, uh, I was collaborating with friends who were connecting health with economics, education, the environment, ecology, and we presented we presented our model to a preparatory meeting at the UN in February of '96. The UN, it was a preparatory for the UN summit in Istanbul in June of '96, the Human Settlement Summit. And while we were preparing there, while we were presenting, we were invited to be there, and it was suggested to us because I was known to be a nurse. It was suggested that we consider Florence Nightingale. Now, Florence Nightingale actually began her work in Istanbul, then Constantinople, the barracks where she actually treated thousands of dying and wounded soldiers from the original Crimean War. That barracks building is still in Istanbul on the Asian side. And so it came to pass that we created a international tribute to Florence Nightingale at that UN summit at that barracks in June of '96. And that's when I realized, when I saw that Nightingale had been an early global citizen, actually working in what we would now call global civil society very, very actively, that I could be walking toward not only learning to be a global citizen, but walking toward helping nurses and midwives to do the same. And we could talk about how we did that. Across those years until the early 2000s, I did my graduate work on Nightingale's work, and we started an NGO called I say we, a number of our UN colleagues and 3 Nightingale scholars, including me. We created the Nightingale Initiative for Global Health, with the specific idea that we help people to understand the bigger Nightingale, that wasn't that well known, that is better known now, but still needs to be known. She nearly killed herself during the Crimean War for 24 months. And then she founded modern secular nursing. But for 40 years after that, she worked in global civil society, working on ecology, education, and gender rights, human rights, concern for poverty, big time concern for poverty, concern for the abuses of colonialization. She was busy with all of that. And she called that health nursing. And so across that's part of what I've been doing. I've been working for the Nightingale Initiative, which our acronym NIGH, volunteering, developing that across 20 years now, or actually 25.
Okay, and does that include, yes, right. And does that include the midwife exchange? Is that part of that NGO?
The midwife exchange has emerged from this.
Okay, we'll ask you about that in a second then. So let's segue just a bit into your work with the Uganda High Commission. How did you meet them? Because I think that spurs the conversation that we're going to
exactly. That's where we go. That's where we're going. Sure. Yes. As it happens, I was invited to speak with the Uganda High Commissioner, then the recent one, Madam Ruth Achem. This was last summer, and it was through my work with the Nightingale Initiative. I was invited to be there, and when I handed her my card, she fell into tears. And she said, "Oh," she said, "I lost my cousin 2 weeks ago. Can I tell you the story?" And so I listened. And she said, "My cousin was in a Kampala hospital, and she ready to deliver her baby. When they discovered she was there, they discovered this baby was stillbirth in her womb. And the nurses and midwives called the doctor and called the doctor and called the doctor, because the only way for that to solve that problem was a cesarean. And the doctor didn't come and didn't come and didn't come. And she died. Not only she died suffering many, 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 many hours with that stillbirth in her womb. And so Madame Anchung said to me, she said, "I know, having worked in diplomatic circles in Canada, here in Ottawa, that doctors do exchanges between doctors in Africa exchange with doctors in Canada, and they do an exchange. Canadians go to Africa, Africans go to Canada, and we do this exchange. Can you do something about that? Do a midwifery exchange to see if we can do something about this perpetual problem." By the way, across the world, it's estimated that 800 women die a day in
Right.
childbirth, and they don't just die; they die suffering.
Right.
So
Completely preventable. Let's just throw that on
exactly.
the end there. Completely, most of them. I'm sure there's some situations that are beyond help, but most of them have got to be able to be helped.
Right. So then, because across all of those years of my work with the Nightingale Initiative and in other networks, I have a number of African diaspora friends, including a couple who now live in Scarborough, Toronto, Andrew and Jennifer McWana. I met them in 2010 at an international NGO conference in Switzerland. And I already knew that Jennifer had been a lay midwife in the Wakiso rural district of Kampala, literally helping one nurse to look after sexual and reproductive health issues, not just catching babies, but everything from puberty, menses, all the way to menopause, helping women and girls with their sexual reproductive health. As a lay midwife, she had been a teacher, so she was good at teaching, and she was doing that. And I knew that she was doing that. In fact, I had helped her share her voice on our website at that time. And so I knew when Madame Anchung asked me to do this, I called Jennifer and her husband Andrew, who were and they took it on right away. They were very keen. They understood, and so the three of us, and now with others, including Peter Calvin, we have developed the Canadian African Maternal Newborn Health Association, CAMNHA.
Okay, and we'll have links in our description for this video, so we'll encourage all the viewers to click on them,
Good.
Get some more information, get involved.
Yes.
Is there a call to action you want to make for that? Is there some resources you need right now that we can get the word out? What's the best way for people to help immediately?
We have two websites. We have CAMNHA.org and CAMNHA.net. And CAMNHA.net is being developed by our fantastic webmaster in Kampala, Uganda. And both of those websites, you can click on how to get involved. At this stage, it's mainly helping and watching us develop. We're setting up for donations, and that will be important, small and large donations. We're working toward, particularly in these next months, we're working toward our launch in Edmonton, Alberta, on November 28th and 29th, and that'll be the first exchange we'll be having Africans join us, and also we'll be having Alberta midwives join us, and doctors join us, and so that's developing and getting involved also in Africa. The CAMNHA Uganda has already a strong office and a lot of people. And when you look at the website CAMNHA.net, you'll see how there's these strong, active, and interesting Africans who are very keen for this already.
Okay. And so we'll ask the viewers to go out and do that. And now, so my next, I guess, question regarding that is, how does that work with the Kaiozan? Pardon me, I think I said that wrong. How does that work with the Kaiozan Global Network? Kaiozan.
Well, first, we didn't actually we didn't say CAMNHA's mandate.
Okay, and let's do that.
That'll be important to then answer the.
Okay, so let me ask you that, and I'll just edit out this little clunky piece then.
Okay, sure.
So Dr. Deva, tell us about the mandate for the Midwives Global Network. Hang on, let me ask it one more time since I'm trying to read it, but it wasn't in front of me here. Okay. Dr. Deva, tell me about the mandate for the Canadian African Maternal Newborn Health Association.
Yes.
CAMNHA.
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 Yeah, the mandate is simply this: to develop exchanges of clinical practice, education, cultural dynamics between areas in Africa and areas of Canada where midwives and nurses and their clients, their patients, are at high risk. And clearly there are plenty of rural areas in Africa, specifically in Uganda, where this is beginning there. The high risk area in Canada are the Indigenous First Nations places that, for many reasons, including rural access, just to say, it's really hard to reach a woman in delivery in trouble in a blizzard.
Right. Yeah. Remote access is a challenge in a lot of different areas.
Yes. And so marginalized and low resource areas have been our focus for Canada and for Africa. So then you were asking me.
Yeah. So how does that fit in with the Kaiozan Global Network?
Well, we
get involved with that.
Yeah. Andrew got involved with Peter Calvin through, I believe it was a Rotary connection, because Andrew was looking for, he already knew that Edmonton would be a good place to launch, and he was looking for potential collaborators. And when he met Peter, he understood right away. Now, CAMNHA has been focused on food scarcity and food troubles and related poverty issues in rural Uganda. And when Andrew connected with him, he said, food certainly is an issue, but the people who are looking after the chicken coops, the goat pasture, all of the food issues, the plowing, the harvesting, the marketing of food, that's all women. And if they've died in childbirth, they're not there looking after the food of their family. And so Peter went, aha. And that's when he said, of course, we'll collaborate with you. And he added a layer of health into his plans, and also is collaborating beside us to develop CAMNHA. And we're very grateful for that, because he has a very interesting network. And of course, all of this, clearly, one of the issues for pregnant mothers at risk is nutrition. If they don't have the nutrition they need, their babies don't have.
There's the basics that have to be addressed.
The basics, absolutely.
Right. Housing, food, and then medical care and education. I mean, it's critical to every community, especially those that are.
It all goes together.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so Peter's, just for our audience, Peter's interviews on this channel, so check that out. You'll get to learn more about Peter and, again, his calls to action. So I guess my next question to you is, what would you ask the viewers to do to help that organization and those efforts in Uganda?
Well, I'm happy to say that I believe they have donations set up already. They have their accounts and I believe they're applying for charitable status in the United States. They have an office in the U.S. in Arizona, and also for Canadians. So they are way ahead of us in donation receiving. So by all means, consider donating to them. They already have. They're well on their way toward demonstrating what exactly the donations are for. So
Sure.
I would say go to that website, and
we'll have the links again in the description. That's right. And we're going to make space available on this channel for future announcements and requests that you have. So we'll encourage you to come back. And so is there anything else you'd like to share before I ask you our $1 million question around here, Dr. Deva? Is there anything else you'd like to express on the work that you're doing or maybe the support you need?
Yes, actually, I would. When in this development of global civil society, that is now my work also with CAMNHA as well as with the Nightingale Initiative, nurses say to me, or midwives as well, how do you do global? You don't have a blood pressure cuff and a syringe at the global level. How do you do global? What? Because nurses and midwives, we're into tools and tasks. We're going to take this tool and do this task. And so I like to share that advocacy is our tool and our task, that all of these global, digital, independent, YouTube, Vimeo spaces are all the tools we have. Now we can be advocating for the causes we care about in this, with these tools. Right. And that's what Nightingale called health nursing. So from my perspective, clearly I'm not a midwife, and I'm not African, and I'm not Indigenous Canadian. But my work has been for more than 20 years helping nurses and midwives to be advocates for the causes they care about. And so that's the thrust of my participation in all of this, will be advocacy. Because, of course, all of this is happening. All these terrible things are happening every day, but we need to put it into the collective consciousness, to help people to be concerned about this enough to where it changes because there are enough people concerned.
I agree. And
it's a new role for nurses and midwives. Yeah. And that's the challenge. And the students and people younger than 30, they already live in a global world. They're already internet savvy. They never have known a world without the internet. So they understand this, and so encouraging them to be advocates is part of this process.
Okay, you've alluded to a bit of what your legacy might be, but I'm going to have you speak directly to that, Dr. Deva. Just share with us, what you hope you're remembered for and the work that you've done. Yeah. How do you imagine it continuing while you're gone?
Well, from the CAMNHA perspective, I would like to see a very robust shift in Uganda and in Africa wide. In fact, we're already in collaboration with people who are involved with the African Union Agenda 2063. Well, 2063, I'll be 120 something. I won't be here. So I hope my legacy is remembered for helping this project to be stronger in Africa, but also to be strong in support of Indigenous rights, Indigenous women and their needs, and not just from their rural perspective, but also from their cultural perspective, and helping them to have the kinds of birth experiences and all reproductive health experiences to be fulfilling and satisfying, and for happy Indigenous communities. From the Nightingale perspective, I would like to see nurses and midwives across the world seeing that advocacy for the causes they care about is embedded in clinical practice. It's no longer that we're just providing care at one-on-one care at clinical at hospital levels or community care at community levels. We're demonstrating our care, compassion, and commitment to the world. And if I may say so, These are attributes the whole world needs. All of humanity needs to have the attributes nurses and midwives have. And hopefully I will be remembered for bringing that into being. I'll be 100 in 2048, so maybe I'll be alive then. We'll see.
Well, we thank you for your work, your dedication to all these causes, for your advocacy, and ultimately for being a role model. I think other people will see themselves in you and want to take the work that you've done and build on that. At least that's my hope. I'm inspired just by listening to how selfless you've been and how just courageous you've been to go wherever you're needed to be a trailblazer. So thank you for that on behalf of all of us in this, in this world. And we hope that your legacy is long and robust and you're remembered for generations and your work inspires others. So thanks for joining us today, Dr. Deva.
Yeah, you're welcome, David. Thanks again. I've enjoyed it very much.
Well, we're going to have you back.
Everyone listening.
Yeah, we'll have you back.
Everyone listening.
Great. Thank you. We'll have you back to again, share some updates and get some more call to actions for our viewers. And we'll look forward to seeing you then. Take care.
Okay. Bye for now.
Thank you to our listeners and audience for spending time with us today on Legacy Curious. I hope this conversation gave you some insight, encouragement, or just that little spark you needed to keep you moving forward in your own legacy journey. If you got value from today's episode, please take a second to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone else who's building something that matters. And if you're ready to take that next step, protecting your business, planning for retirement, or passing on your legacy with purpose, head to legacyprotectors.life to schedule a conversation. Until next time, I'm your host, David Gravelle, reminding you to stay curious, stay committed, and keep building something worth passing on.